On September 7, 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot 4 times at a red light in Las Vegas. Police had witnesses, shell casings, surveillance footage. They closed the case without a single arrest. 28 years later, a suspect was named. So why has nobody been charged?
This wasn't a typical rap beef. It was a systemic failure of the institutions that were supposed to solve it.
Chapter 1: The Night of September 7th.
To really understand how a murder this incredibly public goes unsolved for almost 3 decades, we've got to go back to where it all started: the Las Vegas Strip. It's crowded, it's electric, and honestly, it's complete chaos. The events of this single night unfolded fast and violently. So it's around 8 p.m. at the MGM Grand. Tupac and his crew are there watching the Mike Tyson fight. Tupac is flying high, gambling big at the craps table. But at 8:50 p.m., the whole vibe just shifts. In the MGM Grand lobby, Tupac and Death Row CEO Suge Knight spot a guy named Orlando Anderson. Words are exchanged, Tupac strikes first, and Anderson goes down. Tupac and Suge Knight's crew just swarm the guy, kicking and beating him, all caught right on casino surveillance. Okay, so security breaks it up. Tupac heads back to his hotel, changes, and hops into the passenger seat of Suge Knight's black BMW, heading out to a club. But at 11:15 p.m., they're stopped at a red light at Flamingo and Koval. A white Cadillac pulls up on their right side. A window rolls down, a .40 caliber Glock extends out, and the street just erupts.
4 shots, 6 days, 28 years, still no conviction. Tupac was hit in the chest, the arm, and the thigh, with 1 bullet puncturing his right lung. Suge Knight made this frantic U-turn, tires completely blowing out before the car finally broke down. Just 6 days later, the 25-year-old rap icon was pronounced dead.
Chapter 2: The Investigation That Never Was.
Look, when a global superstar is gunned down on a packed street surrounded by a literal convoy of cars, you'd expect a massive, impenetrable police dragnet, right? Well, that is absolutely not what happened. Paralysis set in from day one. The Las Vegas Police Department fundamentally mismanaged this case from the jump. First off, they completely wrote off that brutal MGM Grand lobby fight from just hours before. They treated it like some totally unrelated scuffle. Witness management was practically non-existent. Yes, members of Death Row's entourage refused to cooperate, but police dropped crucial leads entirely, like failing to thoroughly track down a witness who literally saw the white Cadillac and could have helped ID the shooters. On top of that, you've got the FBI sitting on files detailing massive gang threats against Tupac, but because of bureaucratic red tape, information was not freely shared. Detectives failed to aggressively pursue the most obvious retaliatory motives. The investigation didn't fail, it never really started.
Chapter 3: The Suspects.
So, who exactly was in that white Cadillac? To figure that out, we have to understand the violent ecosystem surrounding Death Row Records. Death Row was heavily affiliated with the MOB Piru Bloods criminal street gang, and their bitter rivals, the Southside Compton Crips. This rivalry wasn't just background noise, it was literally the driving force of that night. But before we get into it, a quick disclaimer. All named individuals are suspects or persons of interest. All allegations remain unproven.
Our first focus here is Orlando Anderson, also known as Baby Lane. He was an alleged member of the Southside Compton Crips. Remember that lobby fight? This is the exact guy Tupac and Suge Knight's crew stomped on just hours before the murder. According to extensive gang intelligence and later grand jury testimony, Anderson was placed right in the back seat of that white Cadillac, looking for immediate retaliation. But the thing is, Orlando Anderson would never face a courtroom for this. He died 2 years later in 1998 in a completely unrelated gang shootout in Compton.
Which brings us to Dwayne Davis, universally known as Keef D. Keef D is Orlando Anderson's uncle and a self-proclaimed shot caller for the Southside Compton Crips. He actually openly admitted to being in the front passenger seat of the white Cadillac that night. Now, prosecutors allege that Keef D was the real architect of this crime, that he got the firearm, tossed it into the back seat, and orchestrated the whole deadly drive-by to avenge his nephew's beating. Out of the 4 men inside that Cadillac, Keef D is the only one still alive today.
Chapter 4: The Trail of Confessions. A man confessed on camera for 15 years and walked free. The reason will make you question everything.
The timeline of these confessions is honestly going to blow your mind. It defies all logic. Back in 2008, Keef D is staring down some very serious federal drug charges. To save his own skin, he sits down with a joint LAPD task force and just lays it all out, giving a highly detailed confession about his exact role in Tupac's murder. But he doesn't get arrested for it.
Why? Because he was speaking under a proffer agreement. Basically, that's a legal shield, meaning his words couldn't be used against him as long as he told the truth. But here's where it gets wild. Keefe D just couldn't keep quiet. Over the next decade, he goes on this incredibly brazen media tour. By 2019, he's literally on camera in documentaries and YouTube interviews explaining exactly how he handed the gun to the back seat of the Cadillac. Then, in 2023, he self-publishes a whole memoir called Compton Street Legend, effectively monetizing his own confession. That was a fatal miscalculation. By publicly broadcasting his involvement for profit, he completely blew up the boundaries of his 2008 immunity. Finally, in September 2023, Las Vegas Metro Police raid his home, find a trove of evidence, and arrest him for first-degree murder. Right now, a jury is seated and trial preparations are ongoing.
The staggering reality of all this is captured perfectly in his own words. I sang because they promised I would not be prosecuted. The guy literally felt untouchable. He even mentioned how shocked the detectives were when he just casually dropped the details of one of America's most infamous unsolved murders. He really thought he had completely outsmarted the law.
He confessed publicly for 15 years before anyone arrested him. Why?
Chapter 5. Why it was never solved.
To really answer that, we have to look past the rivalries, past the gang affiliations, and look directly at the system itself. Because the inertia in this case, it's just staggering. Key witnesses who could have blown this whole thing wide open were either intimidated into silence or worse, outright murdered. Take Yaki Gaddafi. He was a member of Tupac's group, sitting in the car directly behind him that night. He claimed he could identify the shooters. Just 2 months later, shot dead in New Jersey. Meanwhile, the LVPD let crucial days slip by without doing aggressive police work. The FBI held onto intelligence that could have easily connected the dots right away. And this apathy seemed totally contagious. Just 6 months later, Tupac's East Coast rival, Biggie Smalls, was gunned down in Los Angeles in a shockingly similar drive-by. And guess what? That case was also met with massive bureaucratic friction and remains officially unsolved to this day.
When you step back and look at the whole picture, the ignored leads, the hidden files, the fact that a suspect spent 15 years bragging on camera without a single consequence, a pretty chilling truth emerges. Tupac deserved a real investigation. The system decided he didn't get one. This is the very definition of an institutional failure.
Tupac Shakur was shot in 1996. A suspect confessed publicly for 15 years before anyone arrested him. Nobody has been convicted. Was this a case the system couldn't solve, or a case the system chose not to? Drop your theory below.